Today, we're going to be talking about The Walking Dead comics, the source material for the TV show, in case you didn't know. Welcome back, my friends, here on the channel. Today we're going to be doing, actually, my first time doing anything comic related on this channel. Of course, originally, I was going to do mostly reactionary stuff on this channel. It's still a very young channel. And I wanted to kind of just expand it a little bit to talk about comics, TVs, movies, reviews, discussions, different things like that. So if you are into any of that kind of content, it's still going to also include reactions to new trailers and different things like that and all that good stuff. Then be sure to stick around for a bunch of content regarding that. We also talk about tech and different things like that on the channel. So I want to talk about The Walking Dead comics. You might be wondering, why are you talking about it randomly here in 2022? The reason is because I'm a little bit late to the party. I started reading these, I want to say it's been a minute. It's taking me a little bit too long to get through these. I feel like it was maybe a year and a half that I initially bought the first compendium. I got all 4 compendiums and I just finally finished the 4th one recently. And I'm going to talk about that once we get there. But we're going to start with compendium number 1. So we're going to do kind of like a top-down camera. This is my first time setting up a second camera from this view, so I hope this is going to work out well. I'm not going to be going through, obviously, the entire comic, right? Copyright issues, number 1. Number 2, I want to try to not spoil anything. Hopefully, we don't accidentally flip to a page that's spoilery. So one thing I'll say is, if you're a fan of the TV show, but you've never read the comics, read them. Unfortunately for me, I seen the TV show before I read the comics. I actually didn't get into the comics until, I don't even know how many seasons into the show. I want to say maybe like 6, 7, 8 seasons, not 8. Probably like 6 or 7 seasons into the show, maybe, then I bought the compendium. Now, at first, one thing that did turn me off about these, and this is just me initially, is the fact that they are black and white, right? It's all black and white. Now, I heard that they're apparently, I don't know if this is a rumor or not, but apparently they're going to be looking to do a colored version, kind of like I guess a reprint or whatever you want to call it, not a remaster. I don't know what you would call that in the comic world, but a colored version, which I think is going to be really, really cool. That said, the black and white's actually not that bad. It is a little bit off-putting if you're used to, colored comics like I was at first, but then you get adjusted very, very quickly. And the story is so freaking good that it doesn't even matter, right? Excuse me. It doesn't even matter. At one point, you just get so into it. Now, you may be wondering, well, what if I've already seen the show, or vice versa? Well, what's so good about the comics? Well, the comics are the source material for the show, but they're different. The comics are different, and the show is different. So the show uses the comics as source material, and there's a lot of big moments that happens in the comics that do happen in the TV show. Some of those moments are a little bit different in the show. Some of them I'll give you one example. I'm not going to spoil it, but there's this one massive death, not just a single death, but there's multiple deaths. And the characters that die in the comics differs from the characters that die in the TV show. So if you've read the comics and you've never seen the show, or vice versa, if you've seen the show, you never read the comics, there's still that difference where it still makes it fresh. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's really good. It's definitely highly recommend watching the show, and reading the comics is worth it. Yes, they're black and white. It's great. So the whole first compendium, you can buy them in trade paperbacks, of course, but the compendiums are these super kind of chunky versions. They're split up into 4 chunks, basically, right? They're huge. They're like, if you know what a phone book is, they're probably bigger than a phone book, depending on what city you live in, I guess. Or maybe the size of a phone book. They're pretty gnarly. I think they're bigger than an omnibus, I'm pretty sure, as well. So the point being is, there's all these different character developments. Now, there are characters that are in the show that are not in the comics. For example, Daryl, not in the comics from what I remember, unless he was early on and he died off and I don't remember it, but I don't remember Daryl being in the comics at all. Like I said, I read the first 2 compendiums like a year and a half ago, and I only got to finish 3 and 4 recently. They're very, very, very good. So anyways, the whole first compendium, it kind of goes off of like season 1 to season, if you're talking about the show, up until, I don't really know, honestly. There's going to be 11 seasons for the show. So split that up into 4. I mean, that's what, like 2.5, 3 seasons per compendium, maybe? No, that's not right. Yeah, that's about right. About 2.5, 3 seasons. So that's number one. I'm going to put number one aside. I actually don't know where to put it. And then we have number two. Number two switches things up. Now, like I said about the characters, there are certain characters that are in both, but their personalities differ greatly. For example, Andrea, this one right here, that's Andrea. She's obviously introduced early in the TV show and early in the comics. I don't like her in the TV show. I don't like her character at all in the show. But in the comics, I absolutely love that character. Like, she is one of my favorite characters in the comics. She is so good. The other thing, there's a couple other variations. I'm not going to go too spoilery for, in case people haven't read it. I know these are super old at this point. But again, I'm trying to save some of them for people that maybe, want to read through it. So again, there's just a lot of great stuff in here. I mean, you have the whole kind of arc with Rick. You have the whole arc with Carl. You get to see Carl grow up from a little kid. There's just a lot of great stuff in here. And of course, you got the double page spreads and whatnot that are always really cool to see these, big kind of pieces of art. The characters are really, really good. Robert Kirkman did an absolutely crazy job writing this whole series. I can't say good enough things. Every single page from Compendium 1 to Compendium 4, I was constantly, immersed. Sorry, I don't know why I said emerged. Emerging is like coming out of something. I was completely immersed in them. And there's just constantly like, here's the thing. One of the words that a lot of people would use for certain, narratives is filler. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of filler in these comics. From my point of view, it feels like every single thing is crucial to the story. It feels like the story is what it's supposed to be, right? And it's just great. You got, of course, Alexandria at one point that gets introduced, right? The place. It's not a person. Again, if you've watched the TV show, you know what I'm talking about, or if you've read the comics. You got Hilltop. You got all the locations that you're familiar with. Then we move on into Compendium number 3, and of course Negan and the whole story arc with the Saviors is introduced, and of course this kind of crosses over, right? So towards the kind of later half of Compendium number 3, the Whisperers are introduced. So that's kind of what happens with this one. So again, just great stories. Again, watching the show and comparing it to the comics, you can see that there's a lot taken from the comics, but there's still so much different that it's like, imagine like telling a similar story in a multiverse, right? We talk a lot about this with like Marvel, for example, right? We have the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, and there's different universes in there, or the Spider-Verse, for example, right? If you ever watched Into the Spider-Verse, right? You have these Spider-Mans from different universes, and they might have similar stories, but there's certain elements that kind of divert. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like. It feels like it's the same story, but enough of a different experience where it makes it completely worth it. So, and this is split up into chapters too, right? So normally a chapter is kind of ended with this kind of white page and a little kind of, a rectangular image. And then you'll see that, it'll say like, chapter 18, what comes after. So they're split up into chapters if you do get the compendiums. They're really good. Obviously these are pricey, pricey comics, but I mean, you got everything, right? There's obviously very, very strong content, right? So not recommended for obviously, young kids and whatnot, or people sensitive to that. The content's pretty gnarly, language, graphically. I mean, it's a comic after all, right? It's intense, right? I mean, you got Negan. If you know anything about Negan, intense character. So again, the whole of Compendium number 3, amazing. I loved every single bit of it. I'm trying not to spoil too much, but again, you can see just some of the artwork and what this kind of looks like. Don't remember what this scene was exactly. I can't remember, but it's crazy. I mean, we got like we got Michonne, we got Ezekiel, we got Maggie, we got Andrea, we got Rick, we got the whole crew in here, right? We got the whole crew. And again, Compendium number 3. We got the Whisperers and whatnot. This whole scene, seeing the thousands and thousands and thousands of the undead of the walkers. But then we move on to Compendium number 4. I'm going to be really, really careful with this one. I don't want to flip through too much because this is where everything starts to wrap up. I don't want to show the very, very ending. I will say that haven't finished season 10 of the show yet. We're currently working on season 10. So the point being is that, yeah, there's a lot of spoiler stuff in here. I'm trying to take a peek to see if I can show any of these panels. You know, maybe something like this. You know what I mean? Like something not too spoilery. Great story. Like, let me put it this way. When I started Compendium number 4, because it was the conclusion, once I started, I could not put it down until I was done. I read this whole entire book in 24 hours. The other ones took me weeks. Some of them took me months just because I got sidetracked with other stuff. This one, I was like, nah, man, I'm going straight through it. It was over, and it is over. And now I just want to read them all again. Honestly, that's how good they are. I want to read them all over again. So, again, we got beta. We got alpha, you know, the whole thing there. Don't want to spoil too much, but the point being, these are great. These are great. This is the one thing I will say to wrap this up. If you are comparing it to the show, like I said, one of the ways that the show kind of diverts is there are certain characters that survive to the end in the comics that die in the show, and vice versa. There are certain characters that left the show maybe early that didn't really get the ending the fans feel like they deserved because, you know, obviously in the real world, you know, with these kind of characters, these are all characters on paper, right? When you're creating a comic, you know, these characters don't have real lives, but an actor does, right? So obviously certain, you know, actors and actresses, they wanted to move on. And so, you know, they had to write them out a little bit early, a little kind of bit premature, if you will. So there is that side of things to take into consideration, but so far, you know, in comparison, I think the show does a great job of kind of maintaining, you know, as best as they can, their own kind of version of the story. It's the same story, but a different version, like I said. As far as the comics go, I mean, again, if you haven't read them, I highly, highly, highly recommend them. If you've loved anything to do with The Walking Dead, whether it's the games, which the games are obviously irrelevant, they're not in the same, you know, it's not the same characters, obviously. But if you've loved the games or the show or whatever, you got to read the comics. The comics are a must read for any Walking Dead fan. They're amazing. These go for, typically it says 60 USD. Oh, you can't really see that, but it says 60 USD that they typically go for. You could probably find them on sale. I found all of these on sale. That's how I got them. I got them for a lot cheaper than they were. If I had to rate them, I wish I could give them an 11 out of 10, but since that's not the case, I give them a perfect 10 out of 10. They are one of the best stories I've ever read. Definitely up there, probably. I mean, I'm just spitballing, probably my top 3 favorite stories of all time. I don't know. I haven't really thought it through that hard, but definitely worth reading. So pick them up. 4 different ones, really gigantic, heavy books. If you buy the compendiums, of course, you could buy them in trade backs if you could find them, but those are more rare nowadays. And you could always wait to see if the colored versions are going to be a thing. Obviously, at that point, they're probably going to, I don't know, but they're probably going to release them, obviously, you know, as trade backs first before full colored compendiums, if they end up doing that. And again, you can, on the cover, you can see what the color would generally kind of look like if they were to do a colored version of the comics. So highly, highly, highly recommend these comics, guys. Check them out if you want to see more comic reviews here on the channel, kind of other stuff like that related. Let me know in the comments, leave a like, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys soon. Let me know if you've read these comics, and if so, what have you thought about them? I absolutely love them. I didn't mean to rant this long, but they're just so good, man. They're just so freaking good. I cannot recommend these enough. These are some of the best comics I've ever read. Obviously, I haven't read every comic in the world, but they're really great stories, and you're missing out if you haven't read them. So check them out if you want, and I'll see you guys soon in another one. Stay safe, stay well, and until then, I don't have an outro, so I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.